Good morning. When we were young, Russian Revolution was still a novelty and a hope for the millions and the billions. Communism had a charm, and people like Che Guevara, Fidel Castro in the early days, Ho Chi Minh, they were names to make young people feel as if they are the messiahs. Marx and Engels' theory as being practiced in Russia and in the communist countries was such an attraction. But then disillusion set in, the God failed, and George Orwell was very right when he said God that failed. Russia, which was a superpower at par with USA, disintegrated, became a poor economy, and yet it continues to have almost the same impact as USA has. The question arises, why is it that Russia is still preeminently a superpower? It's not an economic giant. It doesn't have huge navy, huge army, and not huge population. Imagine, Russia is less rich than Canada is. Its GDP is $1.3 trillion, which is almost the same as Australia. And Australia has 1/6 the population and less than half the area of Russia. It has a total of 147 million population, not very impressive. Nigeria, Bangladesh, Brazil, all have more population. Military-wise, Russia has only 1/10 of US army. And it has less armed personnel than India has. Navy, it is an outmoded one, and wherever the flagship goes, it is followed by a tug because it can break down any moment. So that being there, why is it that people in USA, especially media and Democrats, have a fear of Russia? Why is it that Russia is still a bugbear for them? Why is it that the Russian activities, despite being less dangerous than that of the Chinese, are a cause of concern for self-proclaimed protectors of the American democracy? Whether it's hacking of the US elections or the intervening in Syria, it's Russia which is utterly dominating the foreign policy of USA. And when the present president had the temerity to say that USA does the same thing which the Putin does, there was such a hue and cry that how can you compare with Putin? He's a killer. Well, that's something different. But my concern today is, why is Russia still ruling the roost? Neither too big, the country is bigger than that, not very rich, army less than India, navy a relic of the 18th century, and yet the world trembles. The so-called free world, A. It is not very large, but it's large enough. Imagine, they are able to influence all the global affairs and do it very cheaply. They seized Crimea without firing a single shot. Imagine you take away the part of the country, make it your country, and do not fire a single shot. The only other example of this in the history is when Sikkim became a part of India, a complete independent country, without firing a single shot, became a part of India. And do you know in Syria, which was such a bugbear to Obama, to Merkel, to the Britishers, even to Canadians, that Russia is helping Syria. What they did? They sent only 50 aircraft, and the cost of the total intervention was $500 million. This is exactly the same amount USA has spent only on training the Syrian rebels, while the cost of involvement in Syria is about $700 billion. You know, the point is the Russians are very clear and systematic. It's not the size of the army, but how they do it. They demonstrably, visibly use it. While others are thinking and saying, okay, take the guns, take the training, we'll give you the back support. They say, okay, we are coming and fighting with you. Since 2000, the year 2000, that's about 16 years back, it has sent its armed forces in battlefield 5 times. It sends in Chechnya, in Caucasus, in Georgia, in Ukraine, and now in Syria. So they are clear that if the army is to be sent, it is to be sent. Less or more is not important. So they may not be large enough to compete with USA, but they are larger in demonstrating their capability in taking decisive action. Second is they do not trust anybody. Russia is like Israel. They are not sure who can be your friend today. You see, the Warsaw Pact was a sort of antidote to NATO. But when the Berlin Wall fell, Warsaw Pact also fell. Then some other Warsaw Pact countries like Poland joined NATO. And Russia had a great problem in Caucasus. This is an empty, resource-rich city. I mean, it's a province. And it borders with China. So, because of its having enemies all around, the whole of Europe, China, understandably a friend, but really not so. So they do not trust anybody. And they do not trust anybody. Then you want to be powerful, you want to be assertive, you want to be clear-cut. No ambiguity about them. If you have to fight, we have to fight. It's a fight for the very living, for the very existence. You know, imagine if Canada had a border with North Korea on one side, Azerbaijan on the other, and half a dozen countries which are dishonest, willing to interfere in your work every day, how would you feel? That is a situation of Russia. And because of that geopolitical situation, they do not trust people. And when they do not trust people, they have got to be strong themselves and appear to be assertive. So it's not only being assertive, it's also the appearance of being assertive. The third reason is that it has power of veto and it uses veto in USA, in United Nations. No country is safe. But if you see the use of veto by Russia, it is unimaginable. At the very turn of the door, they'll say veto. They do not care. Agreed, Putin is an authoritarian. Agreed that he uses means which others may not think of using. When they think of using, they do it very slyly, in a very stealth manner, not openly, but he does it openly. And he says, well, okay, I'm doing it. And people know he's doing it. The other politicians do it, and they say, no, we are poised, we are saintly. So there's a difference between the posture and the action, and the people then imagine that the others are hypocrites, while this man is an honest man. Imagine, Turkey was a NATO member and a Western ally, and still is taking action which are not democratic in the 2016 coup attempt, when it killed tens and thousands of the people. And when the NATO and the USA kept quiet, it gave a handle to Russia to say, well, here are the people who talk of the rule of law, the due process, and they are not doing it. And the fourth reason is they're very good at diplomacy. Very good. Much better than USA is. Between 2014 and 2016, the Russian ruble lost 50% of its value against US dollars. The Russian economy contracted and the real income dropped by 9%. But then they did not waver. They took a very revolutionary step. They abandoned economic worries and started building up the geopolitical status. The Russian mantra is very simple. You are a great power. You may be poor inside, outside you should not show that you are poor. The self-respect that those people have. Till today, Russia is the only country in the world, the only country which has not gone with a begging bowl in the hand. And imagine it. There have been disasters. There have been famines, there have been illnesses, there have been epidemics. Never once they did seek help, either for food or for medicine or for any other help, as other countries do it. So there are two ways to think of it. Either Russia is very soberly deciding to trade wealth for prestige, which most of the countries do. And Russia doesn't do it. He says, I'll show the people that even being poor you can win. You know, Merkel once said that Russia and Putin, they're afraid of their own weakness. They're not afraid, but they don't let the weakness become their Achilles heel. And one more reason is ruthless. Imagine, Iran arrested all the members of the American embassy, and 444 days they were miserably treated. And it was just making utterances, did not take any decisive action. American soldiers have been killed and beheaded by ISIS, and they are afraid of taking action. In 1985, Hezbollah kidnapped 4 Russian diplomats in Beirut. And now what the Russians did, they killed every leaders, one family member. All the leaders of Hezbollah lost one member of their family. And what they did was they killed them and mailed the dead body to the kidnappers. And when the kidnappers saw the family members dead of the leaders, it sent a shock wave and Russian hostages were freed. Would America ever do it? After that day 85, that was the first and the last time that the Russian hostages were kidnapped. It can never end. You know, Russia is willing to cross boundaries, and they don't care that anybody should touch a Russian citizen. Some women in Russia, Russian women in Germany were molested on the New Year Eve by the Syrian migrants. Germans didn't do anything. Russians sent their people and killed each one of those migrants. Each one. They identified them and killed them. And many times what they say is, it is immaterial whether it's innocent who gets killed or the guilty gets killed. Show that we will not spare you. And the people who are innocent, they know that they can suffer, so they will restrain the guilty. Don't do it. Russians are open. Putin once said that when he is hunting terrorists, if I find them in the toilet, I'll say, excuse me, and I'll kill them there. Simple. And he said in 1999, imagine it, 17 years back. And that sort of a language which he used, that if you find them in a toilet, I'll say, excuse me, and I'll kill them. George Bush did not even dare use when the World Trade Center was in ruins. Strong language and decisive action send clear messages, and that is what's required. And lastly, Russia has huge arsenal of nuclear weapons. When I hear Pakistan has 170 nuclear bombs, India has 110 nuclear bombs. Do you know the largest nuclear stockpile? It's not with USA, it's with Russia. 7,300 weapons. And 7,300 weapons, they can wipe out the world in the twinkling of an eye. India and Pakistan can destroy each other, yes, but they can destroy the world. The UK and France combined can destroy the Western Europe, but not the world. But Russia alone has the capacity to destroy the world, and that sends fear down the spine of USA, Germany, France, England, and Canada. They know it, that Russia doesn't mince words. It says something and then does it. There is no discrepancy in what their statement is and what their actions are. And then these opponents accept the fact that Russia is a paramount power. And that's the way the world should be. If USA had been decisive, the issue in North Korea would not have been there. It would not have been there in Iran. USA would not have been humiliated time and again. Imagine, their CIA operator was arrested in Pakistan, and they gave millions of dollars to help him escape. Russia would not have done it. They would have sent their elite army force, raided the jail, killed 20 more people, and rescued Raymond. So, despite being poor, despite having less army, despite having outmoded navy, Russia even today rules the roost. And that is a way people become predominant, people become powerful. And the countries like that are clear, explicit, no ambiguity. And that contributes to their strength. Think about it. Thank you.